Welcome to the Political Matrix News. We have the sources, we have the truth from inside the political matrix. Well, here we are, day 2 of the Winter Olympics, otherwise known as the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Rob Milford, Scott Miller, and Greg Fink. This is the Political Matrix News. Gentlemen, go ahead and in 2,500 words or less, tell us what you thought about the first night of festivities in the Windy City.
It was wonderful.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
I do have to tell you. Okay, sorry, I got 5 more words. Okay, only more. Biden's speech was a very angry man. He did not look like he wanted to go anywhere, and he basically looked like he was very irritated that he was given a send off. Whenever he never got to have his own convention, like 4 years ago because of COVID, because everybody kept shutting everything down. And I mean, even whenever his last words to the reporter before he got on the plane was, "I could have won this race. I could have won a re-election, and the numbers were not that bad. We could have came back and won." But it is what it is. They got what they wanted, and so on. So on. Farewell.
Scott, what did you think? You had to go get some grub last night after our shows. What'd you think?
Well, I mean, it's all the glad handing that you would expect, but it's still just as as the hallmark of their entire campaign has been lacking in substance. And when they do put out some substance, when they start talking about what their ideas really are, is when they really start losing ground. Not everyone I know by now has heard of Kamala's brilliant idea to start price fixing. And I mean, we talked about it last night. And so now we're going to start price fixing and destroying the economy in all kinds of ways. Well, of course, people are going to react to that. So they can glad hand and talk all they want to. The more Kamala talks, the more people really get to see who she is. The more people are reminded of who she was. Keep in mind, here's what I think. This whole thing really is about. Like Greg said, Joe Biden looked very much like an angry man. People are not going to be able to get past the fact that he was, in fact, shoved out of this thing. They put Kamala in because Biden said from the get-go he was going to endorse her if they did. So that meant that they couldn't get anyone else, because how are they going to get someone else when Biden is endorsing his vice president?
Yeah.
So they're losing on all accounts, and now even when the Democrats lose, the Washington Post, the New York Times, and CNN is even starting to run things critical of Kamala. They've lost 3 of their biggest defenders who used to would praise her for killing puppies.
But they are praising for killing unborn babies.
So that's just how they are. When you're talking about the campaign, though, they would defend the campaign to the death. And now these ardent defenders for the last 4 years are starting to take a step back because they realize her ideas are psychotic.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea that, the biggest civil rights issue last night that that all the different speakers were talking about had to do with the civil rights and reproductive rights, and they kept repeating it over and over and over again. In fact, they were actually giving away free abortions in the hallways of the center and free vasectomies as well. And so, basically, their whole idea, and that seems to be their biggest civil rights issue. And they're not talking about the economy. They're not talking about crime. They're not talking about anything else. They're talking about that. And as long as that's their biggest issue, like Scott said, they're going to lose a lot of people very rapidly.
I'm okay with the free vasectomies because getting a vasectomy doesn't kill anyone.
No, it doesn't.
An abortion kills a child. So give them good Lord, but please, some of these people need vasectomies because we definitely don't want them reproducing.
Isn't it the opposite of reproduction?
Indeed. What it is a formula for demographic collapse, like we talked about last night. When the problems that China and Russia are just now really starting to come to fruition. where there's not enough able-bodied people who are of their highly productive work ages
Right.
to really carry the economies in these countries. These countries are in serious dire straits over the next 10 years. This is actually, believe it or not, part of the reason that China is spending so much time in robotics. They're at least smart enough to know that they need to replace some of the labor that they killed with their one-child policy with machine, because otherwise they are going to have serious problems.
I also thought it was very interesting that today Mark Kelly from Arizona, who was looked at to be a possible VP contender, is now complaining about how bad the border is and how much they need help because it's dire emergency, code red, on the border there right now. When 3 weeks ago, when he was trying to run for VP, it was manageable. They're doing a great job. It was, they could handle it. But now it's code red. It needs to be fixed immediately.
That's what happens. Yeah, that's what happens when you get snubbed. And I'll tell you the other big thing is that Robert Kennedy Jr.'s his running mates. So maybe I don't know how much validity there is to the story. I just saw it come across the wire a little bit ago, but they're implying that they may drop their campaign entirely to help Trump run against Harris.
Exactly.
When they're losing all of these things, when these traditional friends are becoming maybe not enemies, but not friends anymore, and you have a Kennedy even implying. I mean, normally a Kennedy would not dare get caught with people, inferring that they may have anything other than hatred and contempt for Trump, and here they are saying, "Well, he's right about some things."
Yeah,
so, and that's on day one,
right? I saw, and it's got to be true. I couldn't make this up because I'm not that clever or creative. Once upon a time, say 1963, there was a picture of John Kennedy sitting in a chair facing the front page of Esquire magazine. Next to it was Bobby Kennedy in a chair. Next to that, Ted Kennedy in a chair. Then Robert Kennedy Jr., then John Kennedy. The magazine had envisioned 40 years of Kennedys that would have taken from 1961 to 2001, which I find fascinating. If you could find that, it would be absolutely priceless. But think about this. A convention, a Democratic convention, and nobody named Kennedy is really there. Is there a stray cousin who might be a congressman or something? I can't remember. They've spread out so much. If they're not in jail, maybe they're in rehab. That could be. I thought Joe Biden's speech
at the event.
I thought Joe Biden's speech last night was an embarrassment to the Democratic Party. First off, they didn't want him on stage. Let's be very honest. They didn't want him out there. They pushed him until 11:25 when he finally went on.
Way past his bedtime.
And he ranted, and he raved. And I gave up at 12:06. I had a headache. It's like, screw this, man. I mean, he was the get off my lawn angry, except worse than that. And I saw nothing in his speech that inspired leadership. I'm looking at this guy going, "Oh, screw like you're going to go on Mount Rushmore, douche." And again,
yeah, I mean, he kept saying, "I gave y'all 50 years of my life."
Yeah, I heard that a couple times. But try this on for size. We go back in time 2 months, maybe just a touch more, and maybe pre-debate. If we keep, and the line was, if we keep Kamala on the ticket, we're going to lose. Then there's the debate. If we keep Joe on the ticket, we're going to lose. Now Kamala's looking a lot better. Okay, so then they boot Joe out. Nobody's voted for Kamala, mind you. Nobody voted for him. Now, 14, 17 million Democratic votes cast in all the primaries. Then, subsequent in the last week or 10 days, Joe Biden should go on Mount Rushmore. I can't even visualize that. And I guess the good news is there's no room for another head on Mount Rushmore. The rock is not stable enough. Can you imagine they get up there and put a face up there and then it falls off?
That would be hilarious. That actually would be hilarious.
Yeah. Grandfather Mountain in North Carolina, that happened there within the last 15, 20 years. Yeah. You can look it up. We had the angry man, and it was such a disappointment and such an embarrassment. And So here, as we are doing this on Tuesday night, the 20th, Barack Obama's going to speech. And do I really freaking care what he has to say? No. Is he going to say anything new? No. And because Kamala, I mean, he is basically the campaign manager for Kamala Harris. Come on. And policy manager when they get in the White House.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, Barack Obama is a very good speaker. So it's not inconceivable she might get a bump out of his speech. The problem is going to be at some point she's going to start talking. And then it's, no holds barred. God knows what's going to happen with her once she starts engaging with the media. And let's not forget, she's been part of this cover-up. It's so easy to gather shot after shot after shot of her saying one thing and then immediately saying something else, and praising Joe Biden and talking about how healthy and vigorous and wonderful he is, and then now he drops off the face of the earth. She, soon the ether is just going to wear off, and because she's going to say something that's going to aggravate somebody, and then all of a sudden, all of these falsehoods that they've been campaigning on are going to come back to bite them in the butt, because they're not like the Trump falsehoods that are really just more bragging and stuff like that aren't really and aren't even meant to be taken serious in some cases. But these are abject falsehoods that they are absolutely absolutely manufacturing.
I mean,
and it's going to be different.
Exactly. I mean, there's a very small shelf life.
Yeah, I think that the other thing about Biden is the number of lies he was telling in that speech, especially after you had the UAW up there. You had the UAW up there with the shirt saying Trump is what's the scab? That's it, a scab. And then Joe Biden goes, and the IBEW, he's yelling this now, it could be fist pounding, is going to build 500,000 charging stations. We all know the magic number right now of completed charging stations is 8. Ocho. That's just a little teeny tiny shortage of 500,000. And as people are finding out that insurance is more expensive and you go through tires like you wouldn't believe on an electric car because of the weight and because of the traction and the torque and the insurance cost.
Oh, yeah. That's the beautiful thing about electric motors. People give electric vehicles, the concept of electric vehicles a hard rap because electric motors have much more torque than gasoline motors. The problem isn't the car; it's the charging technology and how much, and as you had mentioned earlier, the weight, because they're extremely heavy too. But once we get past these technological hurdles, then they will organically grow all by themselves. The problem is we're trying to force a product out on the market that's just not ready for prime time.
And I didn't know if the UAW is actually building Teslas or not. I haven't checked on that.
I don't think they are.
I don't think
they are.
Then what the hell is the UAW out there doing, endorsing Kamala Harris? She's, endorsing electric cars as part of the Green New Deal crap. And it just makes you scratch your head. A lot of other stuff makes you scratch your head
especially when you consider.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider the fact that Tesla makes more electric vehicles than all the other people making electric vehicles combined in the United States.
Yeah.
So, and I'll tell you the other thing, Greg and I know a lot of the Teamsters around here, and I think that, the Teamsters did go speak at the GOP, but the fact of the matter is that the rank and file Teamsters tend to be more conservative than Republican, and I'd be willing to bet you that regardless of what the UAW says, their rank and file does not necessarily vote the way that they're telling them to vote.
Right, and the other thing, they just had a strike with Stellantis/Chrysler last year. The plant in St. Louis on the southwest side, just off Interstate 44, the suburb name escapes me right now. But we're going to put that one back. And he's like, man, we're going to fight for a decent wage. UAW guys are making $40 an hour. Does anybody want to do the math on that? Anybody? That's $80,000 a year plus benefits plus
pretty
a
good.
month, 6 weeks off. What the hell are we doing this? We could be working at a car factory and be in the UAW.
We could live in Michigan.
Oh, that's right. Guess what?
Or we live in Florida.
Alabama makes more cars than Michigan does now. Alabama with
Really?
Hyundai
Yep.
and Honda and Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, well, they have an
And,
income tax
Kia.
as well.
Yeah. What?
Yeah,
No,
and,
Kia's in Georgia.
Well, it's almost
well,
in
Alabama
Alabama.
also has an income tax, and Florida doesn't.
Well, there
yeah,
you go.
update here. Matt Gaetz looks like he has won his primary.
All right.
Oh, I never thought he wouldn't. I've said from the beginning that Aaron Dimmick couldn't win that race if he was in it by himself.
Probably not.
He's not in it by himself, but he's almost in it.
All right.
But
When
it's
we come back,
72% to 28.
when we come back, we will go in depth
Pathetic.
on all of the Florida primaries from District 1 to District, how many we got now? 41? 41 districts? Congressional districts.
Yeah, we got a lot of them across the area.
Yeah, one U.S.
I think
Senate and a
28.
few. There's a lot of us. There's a lot of them. 28
There's
sounds a
yeah.
little.
We got 40 Senate.
Sounds a little low with the population of 22 million for some reason.
And we
Okay.
got 28 congressional districts.
All right. We'll go through them
We're
all.
about
when-
a million per district.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man, per
about that
district.
now.
Actually,
All right, so-
850,000.
Thank you for joining us for the Political Matrix News on behalf of Greg Fink, the gentleman in orange, Scott Miller, who is going to tell us the story why he's wearing a MAGA shirt, but that will have to wait. Appreciate the like. Definitely appreciate the share, but mostly we want those darn subscriptions. So just click the button. No junk mail, no nude pictures of Greg.
No.
But Scott will put out occasionally beard tricks and treats. So we have that to look forward to. Thanks for joining the Political Matrix News.